Hi, I'm Jez Whitworth, and welcome to lesson 2 of 3 on how to build an Android app. In this lesson, I'm going to take what we've learned in the previous lesson to do with the introduction to App Inventor and learn how we can use some of those components that we looked at and actually build our application. The application we're going to be building today is based around a random ideas generator. So if you're an artist or a writer stuck for some inspiration, we can load up this app, click on a button, and it will give us an idea to work with. So let's get started. So if I just share my screen, here we are in App Inventor once again. So App Inventor is this free platform that allows us to build applications for Android devices. And this is a blank project that I've just loaded up. In the previous video, we looked at layout. So we're going to just bring in a vertical arrangement. So we're going to have all our different elements arranged nicely in a vertical way. Okay, so we discussed how we can set it to fill parent on the height and width, so it maximizes the space on the screen, and we can set the arrangement so everything is arranged nicely in the center. Okay, we're going to need a button, aren't we? We're going to need a button to press. Okay, so that button can be found in the user interface section at the top here. Okay, so this section houses all the most commonly used components, the button being one of them. So I'm literally just going to drag the button out and drag it into our work area. Okay, it defaults to text for button 1, but we know how to change that now, don't we? On the right-hand side, there are settings to do with that particular component. And if I wanted to change what component we're looking at, I can just click in this menu bar here, the screen, the vertical arrangement, and the button. So with the button, I'm going to change the text displayed on it to press for ideas. Press for an idea, maybe, something like that. Okay. The nice thing is, as you know, we can always go back and change things if we change our mind. So if you're not happy with the wording, or after you've built your app and the people who tested it for you say, well, I don't quite understand what you mean when you say this on screen, you can always go back and change the wording, change anything, which is the beauty of coding and what I really like about it. So we've got a button that says press for an idea. We're going to need a label to display the randomly generated or randomly selected idea. So we're going to go with a label. Okay, so I'm literally going to drag a label in. Okay, and again, it defaults to text for label 1. So over the right hand side, we're going to change that text to be, we could just say welcome. What could we do? Welcome to the ideas generator. This time. Okay, welcome to the ideas generator, and we've got complete control as to how that writing appears. So maybe we might want to increase the font size to 20, maybe if we wanted to. Maybe we wanted to make it bold or change the color. We can do anything we would like. I'm going to just crank it down a little bit to 18. Welcome to the ideas generator. Press for an idea. And if we really wanted to, we could go to town on really making the front end look pretty. So we've got the option to drag in an image if we wanted to. So I can drag in an image, and then I can click on picture and upload an image I wanted to be displayed. Maybe there's a logo that you'd quite like to include there. But for the time being, I'm just going to have my button and label. So I no longer want this image component here, and that's okay. What we can do, we can either untick the visible button so it hides it from view, but it's still inside your app, and maybe that's not an effective or efficient way of working, so we need to delete it completely. And you simply select the component you want to delete and just hit delete, like so. Okay, and it's gone. Another thing worthy of note is we've only got two additional components, a label and a button, but you might have an application where you have 12, 20, 25 buttons on there. So it makes sense to give those buttons sensible names. So when you come to code them in the back end, you can tell them apart. Okay, so there is a handy rename button. So I'm going to rename my button 1 to ideas button, for example, and click OK. Now, if I hadn't renamed that and I'd gone into the back end and started coding, okay, I can still go back into the front end, rename it, and what it will do, it's clever enough to realize that button has been renamed, and it will filter through all your coding as well. It will rename button 1 to ideas button all throughout your coding. So you don't have to worry that if I rename it later on after I've put some coding blocks in place, is it going to break? It's not. It's clever enough to realize that name change has occurred, and that renaming will filter through the rest of the code. So that's all we need. We need a button to press and a place to display the idea that's going to get generated. So let's head to the back end. Let's head into the blocks and start coding this. So I'm going to hit on the blocks in the top corner. And as you can see, our interface, our screen has changed. So we have all the different sections that have all the different logic blocks. And here are the blocks to do with the components we dragged in. So we have our ideas button, as you can see. Can you see how useful it is now, having renamed that button? Okay, we've only got one button, but it's a lot more clearer, isn't it? And I would encourage you to name your components sensibly so you can easily spot them and easily understand what they're designed to do. So ideas button, it's obvious, it's the button for the ideas. So I'm going to select ideas button, and this one here, when ideas button is clicked, what's going to happen? Well, just like in the introduction, we are going to change the wording for label 1. So I'm going to click on label 1, find that block that says set the text for label 1 to equal something, and I'm just going to clip it in like so. Okay. Now, before in the introduction, we just grabbed a text block like this, didn't we? And we specified exactly what it was going to say. If I just left it like that, and maybe I'd said draw a dog, for example, okay, draw a dog. Every time we clicked on that button, the suggestion to draw a dog will always appear. We know what's going to appear. So we need to do two things in this case. The first is we need to build a list of possible suggestions. Okay, and the more suggestions we can throw into the pot, the more random the suggestions that are going to come out. So we need to build a list. That's the first thing we need to do. The second thing to do is pick randomly from that list. But first things first, let's actually build the list of suggestions. Okay. Luckily, if you look to the left, we have a section called lists. Okay, and you'll find this with App Inventor. The more you play around with it, the more familiar you will be with the various sections. But if you've got an idea and you think, oh, I need to randomize this, or I need to build a list, the menu system is really intuitive. It's really simple to understand. So even if you've never embarked on using that part, developing that idea in previous projects, you'll be able to guide yourself to the relevant blocks just by following these simple menus. I'm pretty sure of it. Because we want a list, we're heading for the list section. And we are going to grab this one, make a list. Okay, make a list. Now, you can see here, there's two sections that will allow us to clip two jigsaw pieces together. So I'm going to pop my dog in, okay, draw a dog, and I'm going to grab another text to draw a cat. Okay, please bear with me. The hardest bit of these is coming up with ideas on the spot. It's really hard to do for me. So yeah, draw a dog and draw a cat. Now, like I said earlier, the more suggestions we throw into the suggestion pot, the more random the suggestions are going to be on screen. So if we only have 2 suggestions, it's like a 50-50 chance we're either going to get a cat or a dog, aren't we? So we need to increase the amount of suggestions we can add to this list. And that's simply done by clicking on this cog. Okay, if we click on this cog, you'll be greeted with this little menu system. So we can just pick up another item and drag it in, pick up another item and drag it in, and you can see we're starting to add additional jigsaw pieces to our list. Okay, we can even take things away. We can even delete that one if we've got too many. Okay, but let's do 4. I'm going to struggle picking another 2. So I've added an additional 2 jigsaw pieces. So I'm going to go back into text and I'm just going to put in 2 more additional text blocks. Okay, so I'm going to say draw your house, for example, or draw a tree. I told you that would be terrible. Okay, so that's our list, and we can always go back and add more if we wanted to. So if you gave this app out to test and people came back to say, I'd like more suggestions to do with walking, to encourage us to get out more and explore nature more. So you could rewrite these to be more nature themed, and you can click on the cog to add more suggestions if you would like. Okay, I'm just going to add another one. Okay, so draw a bird. Okay, for example. So that's our list. Now, it will actually clip in there. Okay, now if we were to run this, if we were to press the button, it'll change the text for label 1 to everything in that list. So it'll as soon as we press it, the way it currently stands at the minute, it will say draw a bird, draw a tree, draw your house, draw a dog, draw a cat. We just want it to select one of those. Okay, so how do we select a random entry from that list? Well, if we go back to the lists, like so, if we look down, further down, about halfway down there, you can see pick a random item from a list. Okay, simple, isn't it? Really, really simple. So if we pick that up and we put it in between the setting of the text and the actual list, we've got that block that says pick a random item from a list in place. So when the ideas button is pressed, we're going to set or change the text for label 1 to be a random item from the following list. Okay, and so every time that button is pressed, it's going to randomize, select something random from this list and display it. And we've got the option to go back if we want to and make our app look pretty. I would always advise you to get the functionality done first before you invest time in making your application look pretty. There is nothing more frustrating than working on an application, working on the artwork, getting it looking really nice, only to find that the idea that's behind it, the idea you have in mind for it, doesn't work. So I'd advise you to first get the functionality down and get it working before you make your application look pretty. Okay, sure, starting a new project is exciting, don't get me wrong, and I find that most of my students, they sort of rush into it, they do all the things, the exciting things first, make it look, do the design of it, make it look great, make it look really nicely polished, but they don't concentrate first on getting the functionality working. So that's my top tip for this lesson. Okay, get your components in, get your basic components in. Don't worry about how it's currently looking. Just focus on getting the functionality working first, and then you can hop back to the designer, start importing your images, start playing around with the layout, and then start building it up from there. So that's where I want to be at the end of the second lesson. We now have a broad overview of the free coding platform called App Inventor. We've now explored a couple of the basic components that we could do so much with already. And in the third lesson, we're going to be looking at how we package it up, getting this application running on our phones, and also how can you then submit your application to the Google Play Store. Okay, I'll see you in lesson 3.